All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to take a trip through our writing planning sheet here. As you can see, I've already got the top section filled out with my name, and I've also got the prompt there, what makes someone a hero. Okay, we've got our text structure here, where we're going to put a truism, and then an example from literature, an example from movies, and an example from history or my life, and then finally an I wonder. I forgot to put an ellipses there. Okay, all right, so I'm going to do this as if it were my paper and show you what my thought process is as I go through and put my examples and then do my kernel essay. The kernel essay we'll do down here in this area. So first, we're going to start with the truism. And remember, the truism is something that we can say, and after we say it, we can say, well, that's so true. Because, you know, it usually is true. Something like, my father used to say, kids, no matter how much money you have, you'll never have enough. And he was right. I could, after that, every time he said it, I was like, that's so true. And I'd come home, you know, 10, 15 years later, and I'd make my own money and say, Dad, I got a raise. And he'd say, Tom, no matter how much money you make, you never make enough. And yeah, that's so true. Seemed to be true every time I got a raise. So that's an example of a truism, something that everybody can kind of agree on, like the sky is blue. Even though it's not always blue, it's blue often enough that everybody goes, yeah, that's so true. So here I'm going to put a truism about heroes. And my truism is going to be, heroes make themselves. Heroes make themselves. That's my truism. And because of the way the editing is going here, it gave me a capital letter where I didn't want one. Now, my next is going to be my example from literature. And my example from literature is going to be Katniss Everdeen from The Hunger Games. My example, because she's a fantastic hero. Remember our heroes, we said that they needed to be brave, they needed to be selfless, that they needed to care about others, that they needed to be strong, both physically and mentally. But those are the things that made up a hero. So Katniss definitely fits that example. Now my example from movies, I'm going to use Luke Skywalker. He's from my favorite movie of all time, Star Wars. And if you haven't seen Star Wars, that's your homework for the weekend. No, I kid. All right, and now my example from history or my life is going to be my brother, comma, oops, don't want to do that. Since I'm on the next line, pardon me for just a moment while we get the editing here. My brother, Patrick. And we're going to leave the I wonder for after we're done with our first four paragraphs. Okay, so down here on the kernel essay, what we're going to do is on line 1, I'm going to write one sentence from this box right here. Okay, and it should be my most important sentence of that paragraph. And then when I go to line 2, I will write one sentence that should be my most important sentence about that paragraph that comes from this part of my text structure. And then on line 3, I'll go from this box. And then on line 4, I'll go from this box. And then on line 5, I'll go from this box. And you'll notice that I have a 6th box and a 6th line. Well, that's okay. We don't need to use all of them for every essay that we do. Using the boxes and the structure that best fits the purpose of what we're doing is all we need. Okay, so I'm going to come up here and I am going to type, I'm looking for the replace, here we go. So I'm going to type right here, and I'm going to put my truism right here on line 1. So my truism is, heroes make themselves. Let's see. All right, there we go. So, heroes make themselves. That is my truism. And my truism is also going to be my thesis. My thesis statement. Okay? Now, I'm going to go down to line 2, and we're going to have our first example from literature is Katniss. So I'm going to delete a whole bunch of that. And Katniss volunteered as tribute to save Prim, comma, her sister. I forgot to put my period there at the end of that sentence. All right, so Katniss volunteered to save Prim, her sister. Now, why did I write my sentence like that? Let me show you. Notice that my thesis says heroes make themselves. So my idea here is that heroes, they make all of the decisions that lead them to being heroes. Nobody has to do it for them. Katniss volunteered as tribute to save Prim, her sister, shows me that Katniss made herself into that hero. She took that first step. And I'm probably, when I write the rest of that paragraph, I'm going to go into some detail about other choices that she made and other steps that she made. But notice how my sentence right here directly proves this sentence right here. They're both tied to each other. Okay, so now I'm going to go down to number 3, and I'm going to use my example from movies. I'm going to use Luke Skywalker. And Luke Skywalker comes from Star Wars. And I'm going to put Luke in Star Wars chooses to follow Obi-Wan Kenobi to become a Jedi, even though he was just a farm boy. Alright, so Luke in Star Wars chooses to follow Obi-Wan Kenobi to become a Jedi, even though, I don't need a comma there because that's a subordinated conjunction, even though he was just a farm boy. Alright, now, see how he chooses, and choosing goes right with that whole making himself a hero. Okay, now I'm going to come down here to number 4, my example from real life. And this one's going to take a little bit, so I'm going to delete most of this line here. I'm going to say Patrick, my brother. Notice how I use in a positive phrase there. Patrick, my brother, just like we talked about in our grammar lesson. Okay, and I did that as well when we talked about Prim, comma, her sister. That's in a positive phrase. But getting back to what we were talking about, Patrick, my brother, took a sick soldier's place in the convoy, and as a result, his truck was hit. His truck was hit by an IED. IED means an explosive device. He was hit by an IED and had to have both knees replaced. So it's not that I want to point out here that what my brother did was heroic, but the point that that attaches to heroes make themselves is that my brother took a sick soldier's place. Okay, and I'm going to explain that more in detail when I write my paragraph, because what he did is he told that soldier that he to go to the med tent and that he would take his place. Well, my brother was a supervisor. He didn't need to drive that truck. He did it because he wanted to take care of one of the men who worked for him. And he just happened to get unlucky that day and get hit by the IED. But, you know, it was his decision to take that soldier's place to make things better for the men, and, you know, take that risk in place of his men that made him that hero. So that's how it ties to our thesis. And now we're not going to worry about the I wonder yet. I like to leave that until we're done writing the rest of our essay. So now that I have all of this, we will take this kernel essay, and each one of these, each sentence, we will blow that sentence up so that it becomes 4 or 5 sentences, making a good solid paragraph. Okay, but that's something that we're going to do later. On your paper, you need to use your own examples, your own truism, and do that exact same thing that I just did. Okay? All right. If you need to, go back into the video, play it again, stop it as many times as you need. And if you have any questions, I will be available over email. You can give me an email, thernandez1@pasadenaist.org, and I'll see you guys tomorrow.